Welcome to the best gym in town. I'm John Greaves III. I'm the founder of Garage Gym Life, and today we're going to talk about chalk. Let's go. Hey, if you want to support our channel, plus grab the perfect finishing touch for your home gym, go ahead and grab one of our 16-ounce laminated vinyl banners from our online store. They are easy to hang and easy to clean with just soap and water, and a great way to show that you represent the Garage Gym lifestyle. Go right there to order yours today. Okay, for the past 3 weeks, I've been privileged to play with 3 of the products from the Spider chalk line. That is their chalk block, their chalk ball, and of course their Black Widow liquid chalk. I'm going to talk about each one of these applications, what I liked about them, what I didn't like, and also how each one of them fits into my training, and hopefully that'll help you with ideas for your training. And we're going to start out with the chalk block. Okay, if you have been lifting for, I say, more than 10 or 15 years, you probably first experienced chalk in this form, as block chalk. Now, for the first 5 years of my lifting, which began in 1993, I didn't use chalk at all. I worked at a public gym starting in 1995, and it was more of a fitness center, and so they didn't have chalk at all. So if I needed chalk, if I was going to be doing any kind of deadlifting, which I didn't really do a lot of back then anyway, I literally would just go get some dust from the corner or something like that. But once I started to lift in my home gym and developed an interest in competing, I discovered chalk, the value of it, and my first experience was with block chalk. One thing that I like about Spider chalk, block chalk, is number one, you don't have to break it in order to use it effectively. In fact, it's better if you don't break it, and that's going to lead to increased longevity for your chalk block. It came in this box, which is unfortunately positioned so that the Spider chalk label is upside down, but nothing I can do about that. However, I will say that it was packaged very well, showed up and it wasn't broken. And in fact, Spider chalk says that if your chalk shows up and it's broken, to let them know, okay? Because you want to keep this chalk block as close to this shape as possible. Now, I realize that there is a surprising number of ASMR videos out there where people are specifically crushing Spider chalk blocks. Apparently that's supposed to be relaxing, okay? But it is not necessary for it to perform the way it's supposed to. Some cheaper chalk blocks, you want to break it up so that you get enough chalk on your hands to get that gripping effect. But with a Spider chalk block, you don't have to do that. You can literally just take it across your fingers like this, and then rub it around, and you get more than enough. Even just this hand that was holding it, you rub it around, and that is enough chalk to lift, because what chalk is supposed to do for you in your hand is dry out any perspiration and also inhibit the natural oils in your hands from causing your grip to become slick. You don't need a lot of chalk for that. And so, again, that's all you need to do. Now, if I was actually going to lift, I probably would put a little bit more than that on there. I'd probably do something more like this. I just chipped off a little bit because it chipped on my wedding ring. But since I'm not taking that off, you just learn to live with that, right? So I'd probably do something more like that, and then do this, and I'm good to go. And you'll find that when you apply the chalk ball or the liquid chalk, this is approximately what you're going to end up with. So that means that this chalk block is going to last a lot longer than a chalk block where you have to break it and then crush it in your hand and all that, and you end up basically with powder, gets everywhere, you're actually not able to use all of it. So I'm really a big fan of this Spider chalk block. Now, let's talk about the chalk ball since I brought it up. One thing I can say about this is this sucker is huge. Okay, so look at it. This is it in my hand, all right? And in fact, here's a better, this was my old chalk bag, and my chalk ball that I had previously fit in here very easily. This chalk ball doesn't fit, so that's why it's in this old paint can, and I'm gonna have to find a more aesthetic holder for it, but in the meantime, that works. What I like about the chalk ball is, and this is actually my favorite application, I'll just tell you that. What I like about it is you can just literally reach in, just reach in, grab it, squeeze, once, boom, that is enough chalk right there. All right, you don't need a ton. Like I keep saying, Spider Chalk says you don't have to use a lot of chalk. That is more than enough chalk. And of course, I would do it with both hands. They do recommend that you take it and wipe it across the tips of your fingers like that, and then spread it like that. Okay, and that's again gonna be enough chalk for you. But I find that for deadlifting or for just about anything I do, even hanging from the bar, I like to do bar hangs after I'm done any sort of upper body work. I like to hang from the bar, and I use chalk to help me maintain my grip. And I find that just reach in, grab, squeeze, let go, you're good to go. There's no mess on the floor, and it works perfectly. This chalk ball tends to release a little bit more chalk than some of the other chalk balls I've used, like where I had to like squeeze really hard to get the chalk out of it. I don't have to do that. You guys saw that I just literally just grabbed it. I'll do it outside the can. Grab it. See how there's chalk coming out of it already? Squeeze, boom, and there's chalk on my hand. That's all you need to do. And of course I can then take it and rub it around if I wanted to, but I don't feel like I need to. So grab, squeeze, go deadlift. And that's a beautiful thing. All right, so this is the Black Widow liquid chalk from Spider Chalk, and this is a 4-ounce bottle, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm gonna say that this probably will last you a good long while, depending on how often you need to use chalk, because of a couple of things. Number one, you don't have to use as much of it. In fact, it even says the only directions on this label are caution, use sparingly. I personally would prefer a few more directions, something a little bit more extensive than that as far as directions goes, so that is a con for me. But I reached out to James from Spider Chalk and I asked him about, what the directions, like how much is too much? Also, why do I need to use it sparingly? Is there some sort of adverse skin reaction I need to watch out for? He said no. He just said that the reason why they don't put more extensive directions on the label is because so many people are using liquid chalk that they didn't feel that it was important to do that. But I said, well, what about the people who are using liquid chalk for the first time? I'm supposed to ask those kind of questions on your behalf. You're welcome. And so James directed me towards a blog post, and I'll put the link for that blog post in the description for this video. And I highly encourage you to read it, even if you've been using liquid chalk, because it goes in depth into what chalk is supposed to do for you, and you understand why the Spider Chalk liquid chalk is designed to be used so sparingly, as well as their other chalk applications, the chalk block and the chalk ball. They're all designed to use less chalk per application. So what I would say you do is, they don't exactly quantify it, they show you a picture, but I'm gonna say a nickel size amount of chalk is plenty. And what you wanna do is you take it, put a nickel size amount in your hand, okay, something like that. And then do one of these. Wave your arms. Voila, which is French for there you go. So, a couple of things about this. You see how quick that was. I didn't have to do a whole bunch of rubbing like I would with the block. It's not as fast as the chalk ball, but it still didn't take a long time. So I could put that on my hands, and then I could be doing this waving while I'm walking towards the bar. And then my hands are dry. I would say that if you're going to be doing primarily the power lifts, that's all the kind of chalk you need. Liquid chalk is all you need. And probably even strongman. I say probably because when I was doing kettlebell swings with this, I noticed that the kettlebell was rubbing the chalk off my hands. And so I would need to apply it a little bit more often if I was doing something like one of the Olympic lifts, or like I said, kettlebell swings, something like that. Anything where the bar is going to purposefully rotate on your hands because it's gonna rub the chalk off. Now, you do not need a ton of chalk because you don't want to stack chalk on top of chalk, because then the bond is not going to be as effective. Ideally, you want chalk to bond to your skin, and if you're doing grip training, you want it to bond to the implement. All right, notice I didn't say barbell training. You don't want to put chalk on a barbell. But if you're doing grip training, you want the chalk to bond to the implement, and any kind of other applications, including grip training, you want the chalk to also bond to your hand. You don't want to put chalk on your hand, then put more chalk, so then chalk is trying to bond to chalk, because now you're not going to get as secure a grip. So with this liquid chalk, you're going to find that you don't need to use as much of it. They also promise that it's not going to dry out as fast as some other chalk. I've had it for a few weeks. This is probably only the third time I felt the need to shake it up. Whereas other chalks, and I've used other liquid chalks before, I tend to shake it up every time I'm going to use it. But even when I forget to shake it up and just squirt it on my hand, it works just fine. The temperature in my garage, I'm here in Georgia, temperature in my garage averages about between 75 and 80 degrees. And so we're all good. Now, I probably wouldn't leave this out in the sun, but if you've got an outdoor gym, I wouldn't be worried about it. I probably would stick it in the shade and not even worry about it. But you guys let me know in the comments if you have an outdoor gym and you have used the Spider Chalk liquid chalk. Let me know what your experience has been with having it out in the heat, and I guess the cold too. You know, how well does it hold up? It's supposed to preserve its viscosity though. Specifically, that's something that they went out of their way to try to assure you wouldn't have an issue with. Now, I have not attempted to use this with any strongman implements. I can't imagine myself chalking my forearms, you know, to do any kind of Atlas stone work or any kind. I guess with Atlas stone, you probably want to wear sleeves, or you probably tape your arms up anyway. But even doing like maybe a stone or something like a Husfeld stone carry, I can't see myself chalking up my arms, but you know, whatever. So it would probably work just fine for any kind of lift where you're not allowed to use straps. But maybe you want to use it even with the straps. I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm really a big fan of it. Only con is, like I said, I wish they had put directions on the label. Doesn't have to be very extensive. They could just say what I said, which is use a nickel-sized amount, rub it on your hands, wave your hands around, and boom, you're ready to go. That doesn't take up that's not a lot of pros right there, okay? Now, let's talk about pros and cons in terms of which application I think is best for which type of training. Okay, so now we've gone through each of the different applications. Let's talk about how I use them in my training. For one thing, I would say off the top that you need to have, if you train the way I do, which is a few different disciplines, you're gonna need to have more than one kind of chalk. It's not enough to have just the chalk block, although the chalk block I would say is probably the most versatile application, and it's certainly not enough to have just the chalk ball or the liquid chalk if you're gonna train like I do. The reason I say that is because I don't train in just the power lifts, and I don't just do kettlebell training, and I don't just do bodyweight stuff. I do a combination of all of those, and there are unique ways to use each one of these chalks that will benefit each of those things. And in addition to that, I do grip training, and so again, you're gonna need a specific chalk application for that. For grip training, you're gonna wanna use a chalk block because you want to chalk the implement. And it is difficult to chalk, I have tried it, but it is difficult to chalk an implement with a chalk ball. It just doesn't seem to work as well. So with the chalk block, you can actually take it, let's say I'm doing a hub lift, you can take it and you can drag it around the rim of the hub to give you a good surface. Cool thing about the Spider Chalk is you don't have to use as much of it. So as I mentioned earlier, it's going to last a whole lot longer. But then when I want to deadlift, if I only have the chalk block, of course I can use that. But for convenience sake, I mentioned that I like using the chalk ball. And so I would obviously go straight to the chalk ball. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is the chalk ball comes in this handy pouch. I just don't like it because I like to hang as much stuff up as I can on the wall. I don't like having a bunch of stuff on the floor because I train barefoot, and so I prefer to have the floor be as open as possible so I can just walk without worrying about stubbing my toe or something. And while I grant you I'm not afraid of hurting my foot if I stub my toe on a chalk ball, I still don't like having stuff on the floor, and there's not really a way to hang this up. So that's why I default to a chalk pouch, and right now we're using this really ugly bucket, but we're gonna fix that. I will say also on the Spider Chalk website, if you do use a bucket for your chalk, they have a chalk bucket topper, but it wouldn't fit this, and so I've got ideas for what I'm gonna do. I'm just saying that I'm not gonna use this pouch. The pouch does have some good information on it. It does let you know that this ball is extra large, as we talked about earlier, and it is a 3-ounce chalk pouch, so you could actually hold 2 chalk balls in here if you had to. There is also on the back, you can see that it says 2 times the absorption, which I already talked about, and it's 99% purity, which is one reason why you don't have to use as much of it. Now, if you're going to be traveling, I highly recommend that you have the liquid chalk, because you're going to be able to take it. It takes up less space than a chalk ball. You don't have to worry about it coming out. Like with a chalk ball, you'd have to worry about some of it spilling out, coming onto your clothes. But you're gonna have to put that in your luggage. I don't know if that's something that you'd be allowed to take in your carry-on bag onto an airplane, because it is a liquid. And I'm not a fan of anything that I can't carry with me that maybe won't make it to the competition with me. So whenever I go to competition, if I have to fly, we've had to fly one time for a competition, and we took all of the stuff we needed for the competition in our carry-on luggage. We got some funny looks. Did I care? No. The fact is, we're going for the competition. I want my stuff to be there with me on meet day. I don't want it to be lost somewhere flying to Antarctica or wherever. So that's the only drawback I see to the liquid chalk, because it is a liquid. You know, I don't know how the TSA views it. So please drop a comment and let me know if you've got the liquid chalk, whether or not that this has been something that's been an issue for you when you travel to competition. So for me and my personal preferences, I would go with a chalk ball and block chalk if I had to pick 2 out of the 3. But ideally, I would want to have all 3 if I was going to additionally go to competitions. And then if you are someone who primarily does the power lifts, I would say you could probably get away with the liquid chalk and the block chalk, because you're going to use the block chalk if you have to chalk your back for squats, for example. Additionally, when I go to hang on a bar, I like to hang on a bar anytime I'm doing any kind of anytime I'm doing upper body work. I like to hang on the bar, and even sometimes after deadlifting, that kind of just opens my spine back up, and I want to hang for them as long as possible. And so I'm going to put some chalk on my hands, which would be best done, I would say, for this with liquid chalk. And then I'm either going to use the chalk ball or the chalk bag to put some chalk on the bar itself to help me just hang up there a little longer. Now, my final verdict for this is, honestly, I think that you can't go wrong with any of these. I was really, really pleased with this. I've had chalk before that I wasn't really impressed by, but each one of these impressed me. Even the liquid chalk outperformed what I expected. Outperformed my expectations. The chalk ball did better than every other chalk ball I've used, and the chalk block definitely blew all the other chalk blocks out of the water. Just the fact that it didn't break up, and I don't have to break it up, put it ahead of the rest. So I'm really a big fan of it. The only thing I haven't tried from the Spider Chalk line right now is their loose chalk powder. But honestly, I'm not even interested in trying their chalk powder now that I've tried these, because I'm such a big fan of how these work. So hope that helped. Please drop a comment. Let me know what you guys thought of this review and what your experience has been with the Spider Chalk products if you've also used them. As always, thank you for your support.